Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the Wild Winter Women YouTube channel, episode 3. I'm Leah Gruen, and tonight I'm with Carole Holley, and we're here to talk about the Iditarod Trail Invitational, which is a human-powered race with folks on bike, foot, or ski, and that's taking place right now across Alaska. It started on Sunday, and so this is just over 24 hours into the race, because this is Monday, February 24th. I was forgetting what day it is. Um, like I said, this is the third episode. We're recording one episode each day. If you've missed the previous ones, I'd recommend that you go back and check out the previous ones because we have background on the race, how we got where we are, and each episode is only like 20-25 minutes long. So not too bad to catch up on. So in that previous episode, I introduced myself and explained my background with the race. But Carole is new to the YouTube channel. So Carole, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Thanks, Leah. My name is Carole Holley. I live in Anchorage, Alaska. I've been here for over 20 years. And I first did the race in just the 350 in 2014, way before there were spot trackers. They were actually not allowed. And you just disappeared into the wilderness for a while. And then you eventually popped up at a checkpoint. And so that was nice. I finished it one other time. That was in 2018. And I have 3 DNFs so far, unfortunately. But always on foot. Though
Great.
this year I might question and change to bikes. I'm just not a figure.
Yeah. What else do you like to do in Alaska? You do other races of the same format?
Well, yeah, shorter. It's to sit in 100 I've done a few times. White Mountains 100 I've done once. And I'm signed up for the Homer Epic, the short race this year. So I'm excited to head down to Homer.
Great. Well, thanks. Yeah. Glad you could be on the YouTube channel tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So Carole's been working with a team of women behind the scenes to help make some of the daily updates and some of the other content that's being put out in the, social media channels that we have going on. So with that, I will start to share my screen and we can go over and check out the tracker, take a look at where people are. There's been so much going on today, just so much movement, so much excitement. So on the screen, you can see the entire course from, the race starts over by Anchorage, goes across the Alaska range into the interior. This flag shows where the 350-mile race finishes. Also, there's a 150-mile race that finishes in the mountains. The race course continues up to the Yukon River and then out to the coast, ultimately to Nome, which is about 1,000 miles of route. So you can see here each of the flags represents where folks are. I'm on the itialaska.com website. So each of these flags is a person. They're color coded based on what race or what distance, what mode of transportation people are using. And then the letters on them represent the racer's initials. So you can, take a quick look and see kind of where people are. Each of these circles represents a checkpoint. So if we just kind of look at where people are at, they're still, within the first 350 miles of the race. In fact, you can hover over a name or the initials to see how fast people are moving. Here it says Tyson Flaherty is going at 6.0 miles an hour at route mile 196.1. So he's quite a ways into the route in a day and 4 hours. That's really impressive. So I would say the big story from this year is just how fast the course is compared to normal. It really hasn't been this fast for 10 years. There's a chance that some of the course records could fall. So that's been really exciting to see. And what I've seen on social media, I don't know about you, Carole, but a lot of what I've seen and from what I've heard from racers is the racers are excited that the course is so fast. They're able to make great time. They're having fun.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it is exciting. It's exciting to
mhm,
watch. I mean, for those
mhm.
of us who maybe like dot watch a little too closely, this is a fun year. It's a good
Yeah,
one.
for sure. Great. So, so the head of the race or the leaders are past the Roan checkpoint. The Roan checkpoint is beautiful. It's in a gorgeous place nestled into the mountains. And there is a permanent cabin that's typically used for the Iditarod race and used for the race volunteers. Racers are in a canvas tent that's heated with a wood stove, typically. Um, it's a nice little chance to get a break. So you can see two racers have left there. There's still a couple with it in the Roan checkpoint. So up here at the front, there's four racers on bike, four guys. They've all won the race before. Three of them currently live in Alaska. One used to be in Alaska. So, very experienced race veterans.
And don't
Next
forget to
race.
mention, Leah, John Lackey currently owns the course record.
Mm-hmm.
So he's it's exciting that he's up at the front. We'll see if he's able to maintain and hold on to that record.
Yeah, exactly. So one day, 18 and a half hours. That means he finished it, or the record time is finishing on Tuesday morning at
Mm-hmm.
8:30 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is that if racers are about that same time, that by this time tomorrow we should have, the winners should be in. Super exciting.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah. So the leaders were ahead of the 2015 pace getting into Roan, and didn't spend much time there at all. I did hear that John Lackey wants his record to stand, um, and at this point, Tyson is the age that John was when he set the course record. So,
And I
um,
saw both of their bikes at the start. They were light. I don't know. I don't know if they have much on them at all. So
yeah, yeah, that's great. So next in the field, Leah Wilcox, um, extremely strong rider. She's coming down the Dalzell Gorge, so the pass is right here where the hand is. So that is the high point of the course. And so then on the north side of that, when you go down that valley, you're in something called Dalzell Gorge, which is a very narrow creek with a trail on one side, and then there's a bridge that's temporary bridge installed to get to the other side of the river. So every winter before this race and before the Iditarod dog sled race, there have to be trail crews coming in from the Iditarod dog sled race to install those temporary bridges, and they're made of logs, snow, boughs, just kind of whatever is available to maybe plywood, whatever's available that they have to build those bridges. Um, Parts of it are quite steep. When I was going down this, I was happy to be on a bicycle and not being pulled down by 14 dogs. I think that would be really scary, or could be scary at times to do on dog sled, if they're just excited and want to sprint. Um, so at this point, Lyell is over 10 miles ahead of Kate Coward. Kate is a friend of mine from Minnesota. She's an extremely strong rider, digs super deep. She has so much heart and gives it her all. So, and she is coming up the pass. She and Lyell have been leading the women's race on bike um, for the race. A little further back, you have folks coming up. So they'll be going over the Rainy Pass sometime soon. Puntilla, we make a little bit further. Puntilla is a checkpoint where racers can sleep in a cabin. There's a bunch of bunk beds. If you're there breakfast time or dinner. You can stop, you can have a meal. It's a gorgeous lodge in the mountains. One thing too I forgot to mention is at Roan, and then also back here at this checkpoint called not called Kendall Park, but called Finger Lake. Racers are able to pick up their drop bags of food. And Carole, do you want to talk about that a little bit about getting food drops?
Sure. So at both Winter Lake or Finger Lake and Roan, you're allowed a 5-pound bag of food, which can be hard, especially if you're on foot, because you may want a little bit more than a biker may. But you can pack in there only disposables like batteries, hand warmers, very important, and then an array of food, which all really depends on who the racer is. And it'll change as the race progresses, depending on how long you're out there. At some point, like you'll see a lot of gummies in there. It's junk food. Like mostly you see junk food in the drop bags because it's like that instant fast energy. I think I've seen everything from like cookies. The Europeans always have fun things in there. Sometimes I've seen cheese, which has been sitting out there for at least a week at this point, so I'm not sure about eating it. Yeah, and so there's a whole array of foods. Some people have gels. I packed my partner's drop bags, and he had just some squished down peanut butter and honey sandwiches in there. Lots of Cheez-Its. I always love Cheez-Its on the trail. So yeah, it's an array of food.
Great. Yeah, in general too, like, you think about like what kinds of foods are you going to be willing to eat day after day, and foods that can freeze and are still palatable when they freeze. So that can kind of be the tricky thing, and getting things that aren't so hard when you bite into them. I feel like lots of people are surprised, when I talk about like race food for events like this, that it's like a lot of, like you said, like junk food, like gummies, there's just so many things like that. But yeah, you need to have, good access to a lot of calories because food is fuel. So, that's great. So moving back in the field, we still have tons of racers on the trail. I would love to spend all day talking about lots of them, but as we get back here, you start to get into the folks on foot and skis. Nick Jansen is leading the race on skis, and Scott Hoberg has been the leader on foot, although it looks like maybe now at this point Gavin Hennigan, who's in the 1,000-mile race on foot, has caught up to Scott Hoberg. Scott Hoberg is in the 350, Gavin's in the 1,000, and then John Rickner is also in the 350 on foot.
And just a reminder there, Leah, that even if Gavin passes Sean at some point and gets the McGrath first, it doesn't count as a win, right? Like, so Sean will still get the win when he comes in.
Yep, good point. Thank you. So Carole, who have you been tracking in the race?
Oh, I've been tracking a number of folks. I've got a couple of my partners out on the race, and so I've been watching him closely. It's his first, and he's, I think, doing a really great job for a first-time race. He's playing it smart. And then I've been following a lot Carole Holley. She's done this race a number of times. She's a great rider, strong. She's John Lackey's partner. I've just really liked seeing how she went fast in the beginning, and now she's going really strong out there. Of course, I love the foot racers because that's my mode. I am really cheering for Donald Kane. It's his 20th year. He's coming over from Australia, but he's Scottish. He's just a great guy. He told me at the beginning that he has the record in the race for the most DNFs, which he seemed proud of. Yeah, I love it. He comes out every year and he's got the cutest little sled. Yeah, he's just got such great energy. I love and respect him. And Klaus Schweinberger, he's also fantastic guy. Spent quite a bit of time on the trail with him. He's come over, gosh, at least, I mean, I feel like he's probably done it 20 times as well, but I don't know for sure. And he's on foot. He's just got a great temperament, really sunny disposition, and he just keeps going. They're both heading to Nome, and I hope they make it. Looking forward to cheering them
on. Great. Yeah, I feel like I always see Klaus, he's typically at the back of the field, but he just plugs away day in and day out, and typically by himself, like lots, in some years he's been by himself, but yeah, that's great.
He's steady. Like, I'll stop and he'll just be like plugging along at 2.1 miles per hour. He's fantastic. And if we want to go back to the women, like Sarah Herkett, she's a local. I'm really cheering her on. She's got a fantastic like sled innovation where she can push her sled. Mostly people dragging their sleds from behind attached to the waist, but she's got the sled pushing it forward. She's got one finish under her belt, and I hope this is number 2.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I saw the picture of her at the start. I hadn't realized that her sled was like that.
Yeah,
that looks great. In the women's foot 1,000-mile race, there are 2 women in it. One is Kari Gibbons, who's the one who started Wild Winter Women. She's a good friend of mine. And then Magdalena Pasci is also in the 1,000-mile race on foot. So I'm excited. I'm really excited to see both of them making good progress. So happy for both.
This is Magda's third try for the 1,000. I spent a little bit of time on the trail the last 2 years with her, and she's great. Again, she's had a couple of bad years with luck, but I'm hoping this year. She almost didn't get her sled at the beginning of this year. You remember, Leah? Like it was stuck in London, but she got it, and I'm looking forward to cheering her on and Nome.
Yeah, that would be very stressful to have something like that.
Oh my gosh. That's the hard part about being an international racer. You're like hoping your bike gets here, all of your gear. It's easy for locals. Like just run back to your house.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Well, we got a question today about how much people navigate. If you look at when you're looking at the tracker, you can click on this T button up at the top to show athlete tracks, and then you can see the tracks that people are following. So if you're watching racers and it looks like racers are leaving the course, it's a good idea to turn on the tracks to see maybe the red line just is the way that is not the way that people are going, or maybe there's multiple ways to get to the same place. Like an example is back near Squentna. Some people will come around the north side and into Squentna. Others will stay on the river and then come up here by the airstrip. 6 to 1, half dozen the other. Like for the race standpoint, you can pick whatever route you want. So if you're following a racer, turn on the track so you can see, what's going on here. So the question was how often people are looking at like a GPS or some sort of a tracking device. I think that the range of how much people are following their GPS track ranges from never to always. Depends on the person. It depends on the time. Sometimes people lose their GPS and so they have nothing. And so they're just following, a tire track in front of them or, footprints in front of them, which can get tough once you get up towards the pass because that can get drifted in very quickly. But I tend to look at my GPS very frequently because it's one of the few sources of entertainment that I have out there. So I'm always looking at it to see, like, so that I can convince myself that, indeed I am like making progress and getting somewhere. How about you, Carole? Do you use a GPS when you're racing?
Yeah, I have an e-Trex that I use, and it's the same. Like it depends how often I look
Mm-hmm.
at it. It can
Mm-hmm.
be it's 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, and I'm just really hoping that I'm getting closer to the checkpoint, and so then I'm checking. Or I remember one year going into Finger Lake. We just had this like snowstorm, and all the trail was completely blown in. Couldn't see anything, and so I really needed it to figure out where to go, because otherwise the only uh, other way to figure out that I wasn't on the trail is if I accidentally like stepped off and went into like a hip high snowdrift. Not going to happen this year, but like that's when that's when the e-tracks or your GPS is really helpful. But otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
it is kind of like a little safety net. You're like, oh, am I getting closer?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Good. And then some of the other racers have, um, they have a communication device that they'll carry with them. It's like a two-way messaging device that runs off of satellites, like a Garmin InReach Mini 2. So it's like I would say typical for the 1,000-mile racers to have that. For the 350-mile racers, some might. I would think most probably wouldn't. And so on those, they're able to send a message out, like a text. It kind of comes through your phone as a text message, um, and they're able to communicate with each other. So last year when I was in the 1,000, the year before that, there was a lot of messaging, from racer to racer, or sometimes people would communicate to the same point person, back at home, who could be fielding the messages and then, communicating things out. Other than that, at some of the checkpoints, there's Wi-Fi available. And so people are able to turn on their phones and get some messages out at some of the locations, certainly not all. So, one fun thing about the route too is that so many, like actually all the checkpoints are a little bit different from each
Mhm.
other in terms of what is available at the checkpoints and what they're like and what, kind of what they are like year round, what they're set up for, whether they're a permanent lodge or just a tent or a temporary cabin or, whatever it is. So that's kind of fun. Um, Carole, do you want to give kind of a preview of the route from kind of where, kind of from Roan through Nikolai and then into McGrath?
Sure. Yeah, I can do that. So once you get into Roan, it actually can be really beautiful because you come out onto this confluence of rivers. And I remember the first time I was there, it was in 2014, also a low snow year. And the water was just clear and you could just see like bubbles in it. It's a little scary,
Mm-hmm.
but it was also just gorgeous, and it was a sunny day. And I remember like stripping down to a t-shirt, which is again a little ridiculous for a winter race, but I'm imagining that some of our racers might be doing that this year as well. Um, and as you leave this year, from what the pictures I've seen, it's going to be very little snow or no snow as you head into the farewell burn. It's actually a series of two separate burned areas. And there's like these rolling hills, and sometimes you can see bison, or you just see their like patties that they left behind. It's a little like scrub piney or spruce, but it can go on for a little bit of time. That's when I put on a podcast or a book on tape to help the miles go, because this stretch is the longest stretch without any, like, there's no checkpoint. It's 72 or 75 miles. Sometimes you'll encounter a snow machine coming from like one of the trap lines or hunters, and if there was snow, you get kind of mad because they've messed with the course, and they like the snow's all soft, and it's it makes going a little bit slower. But this year it looks like it's going to be mostly tussocks, which are these grass, I don't know, bulbous grassy. How would you describe them, Leah? They're like hills, like teeny little hills of, not teeny, they're hills of grass, and it will catch on your sled. Um, I don't know about bike. Leah, have you? How's it
I've
work on bike?
never I've never biked through tussocks. I mean, I've walked through them and they're tricky because they're like too flimsy to stand on top of. It's not like you
Yeah.
could like take them as stepping stones. Um, but they're, so yeah, they're too flimsy to stand on, but they're kind of in your way, so you need to walk around them.
And there's like
Um,
grassy, like
mhm,
kind of like sticks, and it'll catch on your sled and on the strings, and it just is annoying. It's just
mhm.
an annoying area. So it'll be interesting to see when Tyson and Clint and the rest get through here if they slow down or if it's still like nice firm riding for them. So it'll be fun to watch how fast they go.
Mhm.
Otherwise, through here, there's Bear Cabin, which you can stop at. Yeah, Bear Creek Cabin. Really nice. Like it's a nice shelter cabin.
I think it's a beautiful cabin, and I don't live in Alaska, and so like I don't have the opportunity to go to some like beautiful little log cabin like built by the BLM or Bureau of
Yeah,
Land Management. I think it's adorable. There's a little wood stove in there and a saw and sometimes some wood.
yeah. And the bunks. And I've
Yes.
been in there. I think both times I've been in there, I've shared it with the Iditarod Trail crew, who
Oh.
that's a fun group of people.
Mm-hmm.
But not going through this year because of the reroute to Fairbanks. But it's a nice cabin and a good place to get a little bit of rest.
Yep.
So
I agree.
um, otherwise, you keep chugging along here, and I've heard different versions. I swear the signs marking the mileage into Nikolai are wrong and lie, but that I've heard that potentially they are accurate, and it's just like my perception at this point because it's the longest possible stretch.
So when you're
Um,
approaching, there's a sign that's like Nikolai 20 miles ahead.
yeah,
And sometimes it feels like that may as well be 200. Like that's too far. Like I can't go that far.
yes,
And then there's a Nikolai 5 mile sign, which yeah, like Carole was saying, some people claim it's like 6.8.
yeah, it's not
Um,
fun.
yeah.
Yeah,
But once again, it's like, I don't know if I can go 5 miles. And then finally there's a Nikolai 2 mile sign. Um,
yeah,
so
it's
hopefully you feel like you can go two at that point. But
you would
yeah,
hope, but you already feel like you've already gone the 5, and then you see the other 2, and you're like, no, you just lied to me.
yeah,
And that's when you're checking your e-Trex or your Garmin. Like,
yeah,
how much farther do I have to go?
yeah,
But yeah.
exactly. And then leaving Nikolai, there's kind of two routes
Oh yeah.
that can be taken. And, it just kind of depends. Like, I think that, like, what's typical is a lot of the racers will go the same way as whoever kind of is the leader. So racers know once they get out to this point, there's a fork. And so what I typically do is just follow the tracks because I figure if there's tracks, then they would go somewhere,
Yeah.
presumably.
Hopefully.
Um, yeah. So it just depends on what route has been set in by the people using the trail before they get to McGrath. So um,
And I've
so yeah,
never taken the river route. Have you, Leah? I've only done the overland route.
yeah, I did. Once again, there was a McGrath 20-mile sign, and I like could not handle it. It was up because the way that this works is there are these huge bends in the river. The banks of the river are like 20 feet high. Some are very steep. So you're walking up and then walking up the bank, and then you bike across here, and then there's a huge descent back down into the river. And so in any case, it was in one of these bends. It said McGrath 20 miles. And I just like rode my bike down to the river and just like set my bike down and just like laid on my back and looked at the sky, like looked at the stars and northern lights. I was like, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
Um,
After 280 miles or so.
yeah, exactly. And it was cold. It was, like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Um, and then at a certain point you can cut off of the river, and then this actually goes up to this road, which is a paved road, which you kind of take down, and then you go by the incinerator right here, and then kind of follow that into town. And of course, typically the Iditarod dog sled race takes the red route, but this year they're not going this way because they're starting in Fairbanks on Sunday.
Yeah.
So that's what the racers have to look forward to. At least people in the lead will be going there in the next 24 hours, probably, if the tussocks aren't too bad. And if they're able to keep up, really great progress. But yeah, we'll be back tomorrow to report on what happened. And there's 104 athletes in the race, and we talked about a handful of people. There are so many stories, there's so much depth of like information, interaction, humanity, like soul searching. There's just so much going on that we don't have a window into, and we don't have time to talk about tonight. So some places, if you're curious as to, some of the other stories, if you're curious for more information, there is a narrative that's being put out every night by the Wild Winter Women group. So if you're on the itialaska.com website, if you go over to news, it's kind of hard to see these headings over here, but if you click on news, you can get to kind of a daily narrative, which has some of the same things that we've talked about, but some more details. And that's put out on a daily basis. Also on Instagram, Wild Winter Women have a page, and we are putting as much into posts and stories as we possibly can. So there's a lot of photos there. Also, on Instagram, there's a page for Iditarod Trail Invitational. There's a lot that's being put there. Our friend Sunny is managing that Instagram page. And then, some of the individual racers have Instagram pages, and so they're putting updates out as they can. I think it would be really fun, once racers have been or started finishing in the 350, to have some of them onto this, YouTube channel to talk about kind of what they experienced, what their highs were, lows, challenges they overcame, how they did it. Those kinds of stories are always fascinating. So
we can really hear about the tussocks then, Leah. We'll find
yes. Yep, exactly. How bad were they? So so we are super excited for all the racers out on the trail. I just wanted to say thank you to Carole for joining me tonight. Thanks to all of you for watching. So we'll be back tomorrow night with another update. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.